Well, hello everyone. Apologize if I've made more videos than normal. My vacation here is about to end. I think in a few days, perhaps as early as tomorrow, I'll be going back to work. And at which point, although I guess I could make videos. It's unlikely that I'll be able to upload very many. Usually, I think I'll only be out for a month this time, but we will see. And uh, I had made no plans to start a big series, but it appears I am uh, fast falling into the trap of attempting to address some of the issues with socialism generally, and it's such a big topic and it's been done so many times, and even if you go back and you look at my videos, I've actually addressed most of this many times, and I'm certainly not alone in doing that. It's been done for hundreds of years, and all the material necessary is out there for free all over the place, and yet it's still a topic that needs to be said, and I don't know why. Like, I don't know why I do it. I should be debating conservatives and neocons because they're relevant, and Marxists and socialists really aren't. But it is actually I do find it interesting philosophically. I do think that socialists are basically more or less beyond redemption. Most of them show very little evidence of even paying attention to the arguments against them, let alone grasping them. They certainly don't refute them, at least the vast majority. And to that extent, it's kind of futile to talk to them. However, I think it is good because there are still impressionable people out there who might be potential socialists, and it's good if they see something that maybe will dissuade them, or if you just give a little bit more ammunition to people who are already anti-socialists, uh, then they can be a little bit that much better in their arguments. And it's a battle of ideas. There's no doubt. And if I didn't like being in the fray, I wouldn't have started making videos. So through no conscious plan of mine, I ended up making, in the last 2 days, uploading basically 4 videos about socialism. And 3 of them were a response to a YouTube user who, I don't know if he's seen the videos yet, because the response was to something he made a year ago. I don't know how often he uses YouTube, so he may not have seen them. And the other one was after I made those, I was watching Star Trek, and I decided to address the whole socialism in Star Trek angle. And on these videos, I got a number of responses from a user named Amsterdam76. If you go to his page, it's got Trotsky pictures and the hammer and sickle. So it's really cliched, it's cartoonish in its foolishness, and these kind of YouTube users exist. I've bumped into them many times. I don't know how many there really are, and I don't know if they really watch the videos or if they just come and spam you with their talking points, which don't even make any sense. In my videos, in both of them, or in the 3 and then the one on Star Trek, I basically outlined several problems I have with socialism generally. I outlined the problems with gerrymandering, with the incentive for voting, for the economic calculation problem, the knowledge problem, and the scarce resources. And then with Star Trek, same deal, scarce resources, the fascistic nature of Star Trek, how do they square their egalitarian beliefs with the overt and extremely stratified hierarchy of Starfleet, and the one or two, how do they allocate resources? Why don't they build only Galaxy-class starships? That sort of thing. These are the points I raised, and the comment that I received didn't address any of these points. Didn't even dismiss them. Didn't even indicate in any way that the video was watched, or that the points were heard. Amsterdam, and I wonder if that's where he's really from. I don't know. Said that in his Star Trek comment, he talked about atheism and agnosticism, which is something I didn't touch on at all. So why he would devote most of his comment to that is beyond me. And the second one is that second on the Star Trek thing is he said that Gene Roddenberry has given an accurate description of a post-capitalist society. And I would agree to the extent that in a socialist society, whether it's post-capitalist or not, you will have authoritarian hierarchy and fascism, but you won't have plenty and you won't have technology. You'll have barbarism and, poverty, and it will be worse than the Hobbesian myth ever alleged. In the socialism videos, he took one of my favorite anti-capitalist arguments. The none of your arguments apply to socialism because socialism has its own logic and your capitalist logic doesn't apply. Mises addressed this in his seminal work Human Action, and probably in other places as well. I believe in one of the first couple chapters, and he called this the polylogism argument. For you socialists, polylogism, many logics. There, of course, are not many logics. There is only one logic. And although it's certainly possible for me to be wrong or you to be wrong, logic is logic. And we can't just say, well, this thing gets one logic and this gets another logic. It doesn't make any sense. If that's your argument, then I can very easily do the same and say, well, none of your socialist critiques apply to capitalism because capitalism has its own logic. And by capitalist logic, capitalism leads to utopia 1,000 times better than socialist utopia. And if you say, oh no, but no, none of your arguments matter because polylogism, because there's a different set of metaphysics for what I'm talking about than what you're talking about. And I've actually had socialists tell this to me in person. You know, get in a debate, they don't know anything about history, they don't know anything about economics, they don't have any logic at all. You lay it out, they say, well, that all sounds good, but that's just, economics is just a capitalist lie invented to justify their exploitation of the underclasses. And it's just invented to sound convincing, but it's not actually. Yeah, this is, like I said, hey, either I'm wrong or I'm right. You can say that I'm wrong and you can show me how, but you can't just dismiss it and say it just doesn't make any sense. I could do the same thing to you, you know, and it does. If there's polylogism, there's no point in even arguing it. There's no point in even attempting to have a dialogue. It's a non sequitur. It's false. It doesn't make any sense. If it was literally true, then human society would break down. There would be no basis whatsoever for anybody to discuss anything because we could all just say, oh no. I mean, it's not just moral relativism, it's everything relativism. It's science isn't even true because, you know, there's a different science for Japanese people than there are for this people. And the only people I ever know who use this are like Marxists and communists. You know, Keynesians don't say this, neoconservatives don't say this, Republicans don't say this, your regular socialists don't say this. It's just these hardcore Marxists who are still in the 1840s, you know, following some very minor Ricardian bourgeoisie rich boy who had nothing better to do than write tripe. You know, it's amazing how many of these socialist writers are fucking aristocratic feudal lords. And I mean, there's much to be said that socialism is a reaction of the aristocracy against free market capitalism. There's a lot to be said for that. The Marxists are too stupid to even consider the possibility. And I mean, Marx contradicts his own theory. You know, he thinks that that the classes are inherently arrayed against each other. He dismisses capitalist arguments on that grounds that, oh, capitalists have invented their own logic to justify themselves. Okay, but Marx is from the upper class. He's like, so by that logic, then his entire theory was created to perpetuate his class, and history has borne that out. Marxism and socialism, in practice, every time it's been done, has been for oligarchy. And someone's going to say, oh no, don't pigeonhole, like, don't say Stalinism or whatever. Well, A, there's lots of socialists who do believe in Stalin still. B, even prior to Stalin, Leninism did that as well. Lenin was not equal to everybody in the fucking Soviet Union. All right, he was the dictator of the Soviet Union. And Trotsky was not equal to everyone in the Soviet Union. Okay, he had more power than some serf did in the Caucasus. You know, and it wasn't just those two. You know, and so, I mean, there are major problems with Marx. Obviously, his economics are based on the labor theory of value, which is bullshit, and of course he didn't come up with it. I believe if Smith didn't, Ricardo did, or at least they popularized it. So it's a classical economic fallacy. It is wrong. All right, it's very easy to show that it's wrong. It doesn't even make any sense. Like if I spent all day grinding some rocks together and produce a little sand and say, oh, this is valuable because, you know, I worked really hard. Well, on the same token, if I find a lump of gold and pick it up, I'm like, this isn't worth anything because I just found it. Yeah, it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. And it relies on circular reasoning, because how valuable is the labor then? You know, what's the unit of value of labor? They don't even have one, so how can they measure it? Anyway, this it's just so silly to me that these people don't understand this, and they won't even condescend to talk about it. It's like, I'm so smart, I don't even need to address these issues, or these issues are just a semantic flourish invented by my enemies, and with no sincerity whatsoever, and they're apologists for whatever. So for Star Trek, he didn't address any of the problems I had with Star Trek. And I'm not saying I hate the show or whatever. I like the show. I wouldn't have made a video about it if I didn't like the show. The point is that it demonstrates the impossibility of socialism. There are glaring issues with it. Now, a lot of socialists will always talk about, well, we have the technology now that we're in post-scarcity. It's an interesting contradiction where they'll say we're post-scarcity at the same time. When you really get to asking them, well, how is this going to work, they end up talking about needing to ration and sacrifice, and you know, we should all live like the average Indian or whatever. But in Star Trek, there is an explicit and very how can I say this, lazy justification for post-scarcity, and that's with this technology, the replicators that just make, you know, anything basically. But in the show, I think that they realize that if the replicators could literally make anything, there would be no point in making the show, because if they ever had a problem, they could just go to the replicators and say, replicate the solution, replicate the solution, you know, and then it would be pointless, right? So in the show, they are explicit. There are some things the replicators can't replicate, certain materials, and beyond that, they're like not just certain elements, but there's only so much Earth. You know, there's only so much land on Earth. There's only so many other people, and there's only so many Stradivarius violins. You can have all the robots in the world. They can't make another Mona Lisa. They can't make another Michelangelo's David. They can't make the Sistine Chapel. They can't do any of that stuff. And, you know, Picard, this enlightened socialist Ubermensch, you're going to tell me that he's going to value a replica of the Mona Lisa the same as the Mona Lisa? No way. I mean, this is a guy who gets a boner every time his old archaeology professor comes and shows him some rusty artifact. Does he go, well, I don't care about that. I can just have the replicator make 1,000,000 of them. No, he values one more than the other. You know, and that's the thing. This is why the labor theory of value is wrong. You know, the value isn't based on the physical traits only of a good. It's whatever people value in the good. So if he values the age or the craftsmanship, then that's what he values, and the fact that you can replicate it is irrelevant to him. And the thing is in Star Trek, there is no means for allocating resources that aren't replicated and infinitum by the replicators. There is no evidence given. What if his brother wants to have more land to cultivate his Rhine? How does he go about acquiring it? Does he just get to take it? What if Starfleet decides that they want to use his land for something else? Do they just get to take it? Does he have any recourse? You know, this is never explained. No attempt is even made. There's no even and well, this is in typical socialist fashion. The writers and Gene Roddenberry at no point even indicate that they have conceived of the possibility that this is a problem. You know, obviously it is. Not everyone who wants to can have a Stradivarius violin. Not everybody can marry Counselor Troy. There's only one of her. Not everyone who wants to on Earth can have their own vineyard within thousands of acres to cultivate at their leisure. You know, so these are big problems that aren't answered, that they don't even attempt to answer, and that they just dismiss without addressing them. And it's very unsatisfactory and silly, and I shouldn't get worked up about it, because such childish activities are beneath civil discourse.